Part 1, A Quiet Boy in a Quiet Town. Chapter 1, Springfield, Oregon. Springfield, Oregon, was the kind of town where nothing ever happened. Tree-lined streets, school football games on Friday nights, parents who trusted their neighbors, teachers who believed they knew their students. It was a place where people left doors unlocked, where kids rode bikes until sunset, where violence belonged on television, not in real life. No one in Springfield believed that evil could grow there, especially not inside a boy who looked like this: quiet, awkward, shy, intelligent. His name was Kipland Philip Kinkle, and at just 15 years old, he would commit one of the most horrifying crimes ever carried out by a teenager. Chapter 2, The son of good parents. Skip Kinkle was born on September 30, 1982, into what many would describe as a perfect family. His father, William Kinkle, was a respected high school Spanish teacher. His mother, Faith Kinkle, worked as a teacher's aide. They were educated, kind, involved, deeply loving. They believed in discipline, but not cruelty. They believed in education. They believed in helping their son from the outside. There was no warning sign. No abuse. No neglect. No broken home. And that made what happened later even more terrifying. Chapter 3, The boy who didn't fit. From early childhood, Kip felt different. He struggled socially. He didn't understand jokes. He missed social cues. He had trouble connecting with other kids. At school, he was often bullied, not violently, but constantly, mocked for being awkward, ignored by girls, laughed at for saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. He wanted desperately to belong, but the harder he tried, the more isolated he became. Teachers noticed his intelligence, but also his strange behavior. Kip would stare into space, mutter to himself, withdraw for hours. Something was wrong, but nobody understood how wrong. Chapter 4, The voices. Begin. By early adolescence, Kip began hearing voices, not imaginary friends, not fleeting thoughts of voices. They whispered, they criticized, they commanded, they told him he was worthless, they told him others were laughing at him, they told him people were plotting against him. Worst of all, they told him what to do. Kip didn't tell anyone at first. He was scared, ashamed, confused. When he finally admitted it, his parents did the right thing. They sought help. Chapter 5, A diagnosis that came too late. Doctors diagnosed Kip with severe mental illness, including symptoms of schizophrenia, major depressive disorder, paranoia. He was prescribed medication. For a short time, things improved, the voices softened, his behavior stabilized, hope returned. But Kip hated the medication. It made him feel slow, disconnected, emotionless. So he stopped taking it, quietly, secretly, and the voices came back, stronger, angrier, more demanding. Chapter 6, Obsession with weapons. As Kip's mental state deteriorated, a dangerous obsession formed: weapons, guns, bombs, explosives. He spent hours reading about them, sketching them, watching videos. His parents, unaware of the depth of his illness, believed education and trust were the answer. They allowed supervised access to firearms. They taught him safety. They believed responsibility would help him mature. They were wrong. Chapter 7, The first warning. In early 1998, Kip was caught with a stolen handgun at school. He wasn't violent yet, but he was clearly unstable. The school suspended him, police intervened, mental health professionals warned his parents, he is dangerous. That night, his parents confronted him. They took away his guns, they grounded him, they planned further treatment, but they did not realize they had waited too long. Chapter 8, June 20th, 1998. On the morning of June 20th, 1998, Kip woke up calm, too calm. He retrieved a rifle. He walked into the living room. His parents were there. They never had a chance. He shot his father, then his mother, multiple times. When it was over, Kip stood in silence. Then he did something chilling. He ate breakfast. Later, he would tell police, I felt nothing. Chapter 9, The walk to school. The next day, June 21st, 1998, was a normal school day at Thurston High School. Students laughed, teachers prepared lessons. No one suspected anything. Kip arrived carrying weapons. Inside his backpack, a rifle, ammunition, explosives. The voices told him what to do, and he listened. Chapter 10, The shooting begins at 7:38 a.m. Kip opened fire. He didn't scream. He didn't run. He didn't panic. He walked, calmly, methodically. Students fell, screams filled the hallways, blood covered the floors. 2 students were killed. 25 others were wounded. When the ammunition ran out, Kip stopped. He placed the gun down and waited. Chapter 11, I'm the one who did it. When police arrived, they expected chaos. Instead, they found a boy sitting on the ground, hands behind his head. He looked up and said, I'm the one who did it. No tears.no resistance.no emotion. Inside his home, police would later discover the bodies of his parents. The town of Springfield was shattered. A child had become a killer. Chapter 12, the question no one could answer as investigators searched for motives. One question haunted everyone: how does a 15-year-old boy kill his parents, and then walk into a school and kill classmates? The answer was far more complex than anger, far more disturbing than bullying. It was the story of a mind collapsing in slow motion, while everyone believed it could still be saved. Part 2, The Collapse. Chapter 7, Warning Signs no one wanted to read. By early 1998, the cracks in Kip Kinkle's mind were no longer subtle. Teachers noticed sudden mood swings. Friends described him as withdrawn, then oddly intense. At home, arguments escalated quickly, often ending with slammed doors and silence that lasted days. Kip complained of voices, not constant, fleeting, intrusive thoughts that felt alien, aggressive, and humiliating. He tried to explain them once, then never again. In the late 1990s, mental health awareness in schools was limited. There were no threat assessment teams, no standardized protocols for adolescents expressing violent ideation. Red flags existed, but they were scattered across classrooms, hallways, and dinner tables, never assembled into a clear warning. And then came the incident that should have stopped everything. Chapter 8, The Arrest That Changed Nothing. In April 1998, Kip was caught stealing a handgun from a neighbor. Police arrested him. His parents were notified. The weapon was confiscated. For a brief moment, the danger seemed contained. Kip's parents, both educators, took the incident seriously. They grounded him, restricted his movements, and arranged for psychiatric evaluation. A psychiatrist diagnosed him with paranoid schizophrenia and prescribed medication. But here's where the system failed in a quiet, devastating way. Kip stopped taking the medication. No verified compliance. No structured monitoring followed. The assumption was that family supervision would be enough. It wasn't. Chapter 9, The Final Night at Home. On the evening of May 20, 1998, the Kinkle household was quiet. Kip sat in his room, listening to music, pacing, replaying perceived humiliations in his mind. His thoughts spiraled. The voices returned, angrier, more insistent. He later said they told him he was worthless, that his parents hated him, that the world was laughing at him. At some point that night, something broke. Kip retrieved a handgun. He walked calmly through the house. He shot his father first, then his mother. There was no argument. No confrontation, only silence. Afterward, Kip sat alone in the house with their bodies. He wrote notes, disorganized, fragmented, full of guilt and confusion. He did not attempt to flee. The night ended without sirens, but the next day would not. Chapter 10, Thurston High School. May 21, 1998. Kip arrived at Thurston High School like any other student, backpack on, neutral expression. No visible agitation. At lunch, in the crowded cafeteria, he pulled out a firearm. The first shots caused confusion, then screaming. Students ran, teachers dove for cover. Kip moved methodically, firing into the crowd. 2 students were killed, more than 20 were wounded. The attack ended not with police gunfire, but with students. Several classmates tackled Kip, disarming him and holding him down until officers arrived. It was over in minutes. The damage would last forever. Chapter 11, I didn't know what I was doing. In custody, Kip did not resist. He did not boast. He did not attempt to justify himself. He cried. He asked repeatedly about his parents. When told they were dead, he collapsed. Over the next hours, then days, Kip confessed in detail, not with pride, but with confusion and remorse. He said he felt as if he were watching himself from outside his body. He described racing thoughts, paranoia, overwhelming shame, and the belief that everyone at school hated him. He did not describe pleasure. He described terror. Psychiatrists later concluded, at the time of the offenses, Kip Kinkle was experiencing a severe psychotic episode. Chapter 12, the question everyone asked: was Kip Kinkle evil, or was he sick? The question divided the nation. Some argued mental illness could not excuse mass murder. Others pointed to the missed interventions, the failed follow-ups, the lack of treatment continuity. The truth was not comfortable. Kip was both dangerous and mentally ill. A teenager with access to weapons, untreated schizophrenia, and no effective safety net. The system didn't just fail once. It failed repeatedly. Chapter 13, the charges. Because Kip was 15 years old, prosecutors faced a decision: try him as a juvenile, or as an adult. The severity of the crimes made the answer politically unavoidable. Kip was charged as an adult with 4 counts of murder, 26 counts of attempted murder. The potential sentence, life without parole, for a teenager. Chapter 14. A community in shock. Springfield, Oregon changed overnight. Lockdowns became routine, counselors flooded the school, students struggled with nightmares, survivor's guilt and fear. Parents questioned everything. How did we miss this? How did a child get this sick without intervention? How did a school become a battlefield? There were no easy answers, only grief. Chapter 15. Preparing for trial. As the case moved toward trial, evaluations continued. Doctors documented persistent schizophrenia. Defense attorneys prepared an insanity defense. Prosecutors prepared victim impact statements. Kip spent his days in isolation, medicated, often sedated. He wrote letters apologizing. Some sent, many never delivered. In one note he wrote, "I destroyed everything. I don't want to die, but I don't deserve to live." Chapter 16. A teenage killer without a future. By the time trial approached, one reality was clear: regardless of verdict, Kip Kinkle would never return to a normal life. He would never graduate with his classmates, never go to college, never build a family. His youth, once a shield, had become part of the tragedy. A child who committed adult horrors. Part 3. Trial, Confession, and the Mind of a Teenage Killer. Chapter 19. The confession no one was ready to hear. When police officers sat across from Kip Kinkle in the interrogation room, they did not see a monster, they saw a boy. He was small for his age, his shoulders slouched inward, his hands trembled slightly as he rested them on the metal table, his eyes avoided contact, drifting between the floor and the blank wall ahead. But what came out of his mouth changed everything. Kip did not deny what he had done. He did not ask for a lawyer. He did not argue. He did not cry. Instead, he spoke quietly, almost mechanically, as if reading from a script written somewhere deep inside his mind. "I killed my parents, then I went to school, then I shot people." There was no dramatic pause. No emotional emphasis, just facts. Detectives exchanged glances. They had interrogated hardened criminals before, adults who lied, manipulated, threatened, and begged, but this was different. This was a child calmly confessing to acts so violent that even veteran officers felt their stomachs turn. Chapter 20. Killing his parents. The confession began at home. The night before the school shooting, Kip waited until his parents were asleep. His father lay in bed, exhausted from work. His mother slept nearby. Kip retrieved a firearm from the house, a weapon he had stolen earlier. He stood in the doorway for several minutes. Later, he told police, "I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel scared. I felt empty." He shot his father first, then his mother. There was no argument. No warning. No struggle. Afterward, Kip left their bodies where they fell. He stepped over them. He took money from his father's wallet. He locked the door, then he went to bed. The next morning, he woke up, packed ammunition, and went to school. As if nothing had happened. Chapter 21. The day that shattered a town. Thurston High School was quiet that morning. Students laughed in hallways, teachers prepared lessons. Nobody sensed what was about to happen. Kip arrived with a backpack full of ammunition and a rifle hidden under a jacket. Within minutes, the school became a war zone. Gunshots echoed through hallways. Students ran screaming. Some collapsed where they stood. 2 students were killed. 25 others were injured. When Kip ran out of ammunition, something unexpected happened. He stopped. He put the gun down, and he waited. Students tackled him. Teachers restrained him. He did not resist. Later, he told police, "I didn't want to do it anymore. I just wanted it to stop." Chapter 22. I thought about it every day. During interrogation, detectives asked the question everyone wanted answered: why? Why kill your parents? Why go to school? Why so much violence? Kip's answer was disturbing in its simplicity. "I had thoughts, bad thoughts. They didn't go away, they got louder." He described a constant inner voice, telling him he was worthless, broken, a failure. He talked about severe depression, explosive rage followed by emptiness, intrusive violent thoughts, feelings of isolation and inability to control impulses. Psychologists later confirmed that Kip suffered from severe mental illness, including psychosis and clinical depression, but mental illness alone did not explain the violence. There was something else. Chapter 23. The broken relationship with authority. Kip had been in trouble before. Teachers described him as unstable, classmates described him as strange, unpredictable. His parents had tried to control his behavior, grounding him, restricting access to weapons. In Kip's mind, This felt like persecution. He said, they were trying to stop me from being myself. This is where his thinking became dangerous. Instead of seeing boundaries as protection, he interpreted them as oppression. Instead of seeing concern, he saw enemies. His parents were no longer caregivers, they were obstacles. Chapter 24. The trial begins because of the scale of the crime. Kip was charged as an adult. The courtroom was filled every day. Parents of victims sat frozen, staring at the boy who had shattered their families. Kip sat quietly beside his lawyers, barely moving. He did not look at the victims' families. He did not react to testimony when graphic evidence was shown. He did not flinch. The prosecution described him as a calculated killer who knew exactly what he was doing. The defense argued, a severely mentally ill child who should never have had access to weapons. Both sides were right and wrong. Chapter 25. The mind of a teenage killer. Psychologists who examined Kip agreed on several key points. 1. Emotional detachment. Kip struggled to feel normal emotional responses. Violence did not trigger fear or guilt in the moment. 2. Poor impulse control. His brain was still developing, especially the areas responsible for judgment and restraint. 3. Obsessive thoughts. Once violent fantasies entered his mind, he could not shut them off. 4. Identity collapse. He did not know who he was: student, son, failure, monster. Violence became a way to define himself. Chapter 26. The sentence. The judge faced an impossible decision. Kip was 15. But his crimes were among the worst in modern American history. In the end, the court sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The room went silent. Kip did not cry. He did not protest. He simply nodded. Later, he said, "I deserve to be here." Chapter 27. A child locked away forever in prison. Kip became one of the youngest inmates serving life. He spent years in isolation, years without normal human contact, years replaying the same memories over and over. He wrote letters expressing regret. He apologized repeatedly. He acknowledged the horror of what he had done. But apologies could not undo the damage. 2. Parents were dead. 2. Students were buried. A town was permanently scarred, and a child became a murderer, then a prisoner, then a cautionary tale. Chapter 28. The question that never goes away: was Kip Kinkle evil, or was he a mentally ill child failed by every system meant to protect him? There is no clean answer. What remains is a terrifying truth. Sometimes, killers are not born monsters. Sometimes, they are children whose minds collapse under pressure, and when that happens, the consequences are irreversible. Part 4. Sentence, Silence, and the Long Shadow. Chapter 31. The courtroom watches a child become a monster. The courtroom was silent in a way that felt unnatural, not respectful, not calm, but heavy, as if every person inside was holding the same breath. Kip Kinkle entered escorted by guards, wearing a suit that didn't quite fit his thin frame. He was 16 years old, yet he looked even younger. His shoulders were narrow. His face still had traces of childhood softness, and yet, everyone in that room knew what he had done. 2. Parents murdered in their own home. 2. Classmates killed. 25 others wounded. A school turned into a battlefield. The judge looked down at him not with anger, but with something far more disturbing, sorrow mixed with disbelief. This was not a hardened criminal. This was a boy who had collapsed into something unrecognizable. Chapter 32. The confession without drama. Unlike many killers, Kip did not grandstand. He did not boast. He did not deny. When asked to speak, he stood slowly and said quietly, "I did it. I killed my parents. I went to the school with the gun. I wanted to die." There was no justification in his voice. No ideology. No hatred toward classmates, only emptiness. Psychiatrists later said this was one of the most chilling aspects of the case, the absence of motive that made sense to normal people. No manifesto. No plan for fame. No rage speech, just a mentally collapsing teenager acting under voices, paranoia, and delusions he could no longer control. Chapter 33. Inside the mind of a teenage killer. Court-appointed psychologists painted a terrifying picture of Kip's inner world. By the time of the shootings, Kip was suffering from untreated paranoid schizophrenia, auditory hallucinations, extreme dissociation, suicidal ideation, obsessive violent thoughts. He feared and hid. He described hearing voices telling him he was evil, that others wanted to kill him, that death was inevitable. One psychiatrist testified, he believed the world was collapsing around him. He was not trying to become a monster. He believed he already was one. Kip did not kill because he wanted power. He killed because his mind was breaking, and no one stopped it in time. Chapter 34. The parents who tried to save him. One of the most painful aspects of the trial was the truth about Kip's parents. They were not neglectful, they were not abusive, they were not indifferent, they were teachers, they sought help, they took him to doctors, they asked for medication. They begged for intervention, but the system failed. Doctors underestimated the severity. Medication was reduced too early, warning signs were missed, resources were limited, and in the final, unbearable irony, the people who tried hardest to help Kip were the first ones he killed. This fact haunted the courtroom. Chapter 35. Life sentence at 16. The judge paused for a long time before delivering the sentence. He acknowledged Kip's age, his mental illness, the failures of the system. Then he spoke the words that ended Kip's life as a free human being. This court sentences you to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Gasps rippled through the room. 16 years old, life behind bars. The judge added, "This is not vengeance, this is protection, and it is tragedy." Kip did not react. He nodded slightly. As if he already knew this was how his story would end. Chapter 36. Prison, where time stops growing. Kip was transferred to adult prison, not juvenile detention, not a hospital. A concrete world built for grown men. He became one of the youngest inmates serving life in the United States. At first, guards feared he would be killed. But something unexpected happened. Kip withdrew completely. He did not fight. He did not join gangs. He did not seek attention. He read. He wrote. He attended therapy. He complied with medication. Years passed, then decades. His hair turned gray, his face hardened. The boy disappeared. Chapter 37. Guilt that never left. Unlike many killers, Kip expressed consistent remorse. In letters, he wrote, "I destroyed everything. There is no excuse. I live with this every day." He did not ask for forgiveness. He did not claim redemption. He accepted punishment as permanent. Psychologists noted something rare. Kip did not try to rewrite his story. He did not minimize. He did not blame society. He did not blame music, games, or classmates. He blamed himself and his illness. Chapter 38. The question that never goes away. The Kip Kinkle case left America with a question that still has no answer. What do we do when a child becomes dangerous? Is punishment enough? Is treatment enough? Can society intervene before violence happens, or only after? Kip was not a psychopath. He was not seeking fame. He was not driven by ideology. He was a collapsing mind inside a teenage body, and by the time anyone truly understood that, it was already too late. Chapter 39. The legacy of a broken childhood today. Kip Kinkle remains in prison. He will never be released. He will never have a family. He will never undo what he did. The victim's families still grieve. The school still remembers. Oregon still carries the scar, and Kip remains a warning. Not every killer is born evil. Some are missed, some are ignored, some are lost between institutions, and when they finally explode, the cost is irreversible. Chapter 40. Ending without closure. There is no clean ending to this story. No justice that feels complete. No explanation that satisfies. No punishment that restores what was taken. Only silence. A boy who should have grown up. No growing old behind bars, and a nation still asking, how many signs do we miss before a child becomes a killer?